Here are the 8 steps. First, define the problem. Second, assemble evidence. Third, construct alternatives. Fourth, select criteria for judging those alternatives. Fifth, project the outcomes. Sixth, confront the trade-offs. Seventh, decide. And eighth, tell your story. While this looks like a linear checklist, Bardach emphasizes that it is iterative. You will get to step 3 and realize you defined the problem wrong in step 1, and you'll have to go back. That is normal. Policy analysis is not a straight line. It is a spiral of refinement. You are constantly testing your assumptions against reality. Step 1 is defining the problem. Bardach argues this is the most critical and difficult step. A common mistake is to define the problem as we need a new hospital. That is not a problem. That is a solution disguised as a problem. The actual problem is there are too many patients waiting in the ER, or mortality rates from trauma are too high. You must state the problem in terms of deficit or excess. There are too many homeless people with tuberculosis. There is too little funding for prenatal care. By defining it quantitatively, using words like too high, too low, growing too fast, you set yourself up to measure success later. If you define the problem as the lack of a hospital, then building a hospital is the only solution, even if a clinic would have worked better. You must also strip away the rhetoric. Don't say the schools are failing. That is an emotional slogan, not a policy problem. Say third grade reading scores in this specific district have dropped 5% over 3 years. Now you have something you can attack. You need to locate the problem geographically and demographically. Is it a national problem? A state problem? Does it affect the elderly or the young? The more precise your definition, the less money you will waste on solutions that miss the target. A vague problem definition leads to vague, ineffective policy. Step 2 is assemble some evidence. Bardach calls this the data hustle because you usually have very little time. Unlike an academic who has 5 years to write a dissertation, a policy analyst might have 48 hours to write a brief. You cannot read everything. You have to hunt for the evidence that will actually move the needle on the decision. You are looking for evidence on 3 things: the magnitude of the problem, how bad is it? The causes of the problem, why is it happening? And the effectiveness of potential solutions, what has worked elsewhere? You have to accept that you will never have perfect information. You must make the best recommendation you can with the best available evidence. Where do you find this evidence? It comes in 2 flavors: documents and people. Documents include census data, previous legislation, and agency reports. These give you the numbers, but people give you the context. Bardach stresses the importance of picking up the phone. Call the people who actually do the work. If you are writing a policy about ER overcrowding, don't just look at the waiting time spreadsheets. Call the triage nurse at 2 a.m. and ask her why she thinks the wait is so long. She might tell you, it's because the psych ward is full and we can't move patients upstairs. That is a crucial piece of evidence, the bottleneck, that you will never find in a spreadsheet. Interviews act as a reality check on your data. Step 3 is construct alternatives. Now that you know the problem and have the evidence, what are you going to do about it? You need a menu of options. You should start by brainstorming widely. Get crazy ideas on the whiteboard, then narrow them down to the top 3 or 4 viable options. Crucially, you must always include the status quo as an alternative. Sometimes, the cost of fixing a problem is higher than the cost of the problem itself. Let present trends continue is a legitimate policy choice, and you must analyze it just as rigorously as the new proposals. This serves as your baseline for comparison. When constructing alternatives, avoid binary thinking. It's rarely just ban X or fund Y. use the full toolkit of government? Can you tax the bad behavior? Can you subsidize the good behavior? Can you regulate the process? Can you educate the public? For example, if the problem is traffic congestion, don't just say, build more roads. Consider congestion pricing, a tax. Consider better bus lanes, infrastructure. Consider telework tax credits, incentives. Good policy analysis offers a nuanced range of options, light, medium, and heavy intervention, so the decision maker can choose the level of political risk they are willing to take. Bardach advises us to start smart. This means don't reinvent the wheel. If you are trying to solve homelessness in Seattle, look at what Houston or Salt Lake City did. Look for natural experiments in the laboratories of democracy, the 50 states. If a policy worked in Minnesota, can we import it? You have to be careful, of course. Context matters. What works in a high-tax Nordic country might not work in Texas, but looking at existing models gives you a head start and provides evidence of feasibility. It worked there is the strongest argument you can make to a skeptical politician. Finally, let's talk about pitfalls. The biggest one is falling in love with your first idea. You define the problem, you think of a cool solution, and then you spend all your time looking for evidence to prove yourself right. That is confirmation bias, and it is fatal in policy analysis. You must aggressively attack your own ideas. Look for reasons why the asterisk won't asterisk work. Look for the implementation barriers. Another pitfall is analysis paralysis, waiting for perfect data that will never come. At some point, you have to stop counting and start deciding. In the real world, an 80% solution on Tuesday is better than a 100% solution on Friday if the vote is on Thursday. To conclude, Lesson 2. Bardach gives us the structure to turn chaos into order. By defining the problem precisely, hustling for the best available evidence, and constructing a creative range of alternatives, you provide your stakeholders with the clarity they need to lead. In Module 7, you will use this exact framework to write your own policy briefs. But before we can become ethical policy analysts, we must understand why ethics matters. We must look at what happens when experts armed with data and authority lose their moral compass. In the next lesson, we travel to Tuskegee, Alabama,